evening. A very good evening to everyone who has joined us so far. You're very welcome to the Black Women's Society's meeting following our 6th edition, The Black Family, Adapting to Survive and Thrive. I'm Esther, and I'm joined by my co-host this evening, Aletha. And we are joined today by 4 esteemed guest panelists. So please warmly welcome Courtney Brown, Khonsu, Sankofa, Sherine Kerr, and Debby Enoe. So Courtney Brown is the founder and CEO of the award-winning Father to Father CIC, an organisation whose mission is to increase the proportion of children growing up with involved, responsible fathers and male role models. Debby Enoe is an educator, education consultant, psychologist, mindset coach, inspirational public speaker, mentor for the 100 Black Men of London, and host of multiple shows under Teacher Success Coach. We also have Sherine Kerr. Sherine is a qualified integrative therapist and the founder of the Black Family Support Group. Last but by no means least, we have Khonsu Sankofa. Khonsu is the founder of the Manhood Academy, co-founder, and has over 15 years experience in education. And he is a qualified life coach, counsellor, and author of Sacred Man, From Boyhood to Manhood to Divine Masculine. So a very warm welcome to you all once again. And hopefully you've all had the opportunity to review and read issue 6, which is by the same title of today's meeting. And essentially the rationale behind it is to emphasize the point that family is our first society. So what we hope to see in society is hopefully what we're able to reflect and achieve within our homes. So the focus of our meetings generally is really just about living our values. Ultimately, we want to encourage our community to take these meetings as an opportunity to learn and, receive the points of learning and action to be able to apply that to their everyday lives, and from there be able to transform the communities that we live in. So the vibe is very inclusive, very collegiate. So we are actively seeking your collaboration here. By no means do we expect our panelists to have all the answers, but what we do want to do is to basically work with you as our online community to try and work towards what those potential solutions could look like. So please do participate by engaging in the chat, and also by sending questions, which will be attended to during the question and answer session. So thank you all again for joining us today. What I'd like to do is to dive straight in, just because of time. We will go straight to question 1. And the first question is, society and the people it consists of must always evolve. Should we accept the current state of Black homes in terms of the broader picture as the new normal, or should we adjust our approach to how we respond to the conditions and the relative sense of crisis within our homes? So I'm going to put that question first of all to Brother Khonsu.
Hi, greetings. Well, I'll start with a quote from the late, great Dr. Layla O. Africa, who said that the African family is the highest technology. And I think as a people, as a community at the moment, in the world cities of this planet, I just think that we're having to adapt in an unnatural state of mind. And but at the same time, in terms of survival, it is about adaptation. And we have our moments of greatness. As they say, pressure creates a diamond. We see that in the great leaders that have done amazing, phenomenal things in the context of pressure of our community, you know, just kind of really being forced to be at the bottom of the pit, quote unquote, for a better word. And yeah, it's really about how we kind of function as a community and adapt really to where we're at now, because the only real moment is now. And the real moment, meaning now, consists of technology. It consists of what we're doing now. It consists of reconfiguring our whole structures towards, you know, having to adapt to doing things using technology online. Our young people are wholly integrated as digital natives into, you know, technology, etc. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that really we just have to keep on adapting and reconfiguring like we do as a people, and we have done for hundreds of years. We've got to keep that going and just keep on focusing, overcoming the challenges that face us on a daily basis, and in terms of our families, personally, and in terms of our community.
Thank you very much, Khonsu. I'd like to next go to Debby.
Yes, hi everybody. As much as I feel that we have to adapt to survive, I feel that we need to be very truthful to where we come from. Because right now in this society, survival of the fittest, but in order for us to survive, when we look in the education system, we have to adapt. But at the same time, we should not lose where we come from and where we're going. Because I think right now that is happening in the education system. Because there's where I feel that the Black community and the Black family have to stand together in order to ensure that the children in the education system isn't lost. Because as we know, the education system is not there for us. So that's where, in terms of, yes, adaptation, but at the same time, be very mindful that we do not lose who we are. And I think we are losing it, because personally, I do not feel there is enough parents getting involved in the education system. And in order for us not to lose it, we need to be involved in the education system, because there is where the children are most of the time.
Thank you very much, Sister Debby. And I think that's a very, very strong and valid point. I want to revisit what you said about not losing where we're coming from, because that's very powerful. Sherine, would you like to come in and add your comments to this particular question?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I would like to say, in regards to education, from my experience of working in the educational system, we really need to educate Black parents on how they can support their children when they are in schools and in colleges and in universities. Because if you don't know how to work your way through the system, there are pitfalls along the way. So I think really having that education helps you to support the children, support the family. And I think it's really important that parents are aware of what they can do and what legally what they can do as well to support their children.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point, Sherine. I don't know if, because obviously you're a practitioner, so you are a teacher yourself, and I just wonder if there was anything in practical terms. You know, you refer to the education of the parents. You know, what are some of the things that you would like to see in terms of that education, where Black parents are concerned?
Just to have a lot more awareness, really, of the system, and getting that knowledge to the parents and the Black family.
Okay.
And that's something that I hope to do within my group.
Fantastic. And Courtney, good evening again.
Good evening.
Would be great to get your feedback, because again, you have obviously worked quite extensively in education yourself. So just again, revisiting that question,
Well, yeah, I work in education, so been in education for 8 years. I'm head of student engagement for a secondary school in Hackney, and part of my role in that is parental engagement, getting parents involved in education. I agree with all of my colleagues on the panel that, you know, it is about helping our African Caribbean parents to navigate that system, and be more involved in it, understand the system, the pitfalls, and so forth. You know, going to the parents' evenings, make sure you're speaking at the parents' evenings, but also read up on all of the, the behavior policies, the SEN policies, the inclusion policies. Really read up on that and educate yourself around that, understanding how to navigate it. But also, you know, one of the key things, you know, is the what I call the attack on our Black boys, and obviously the permanent exclusions and the permanent exclusions and the fixed term exclusions. That's a different beast altogether. And you know, we need outside organizations to support parents to be able to do that. And I think the other thing as well is parents don't suffer in silence. There's no shame, there's nothing. You know, this is a system that isn't for us. So we as a community can be there to support you with that knowledge. So that's the education system in regards to my role there. But I think also just looking at the home. So me as a father, you know, and what I say to my children, how I speak to my children, how me and my wife, let me just say it, not as parents, it's about, for me, every day me and my wife are affirming our sons, because of a society of the, you know, the social media, what's out there, what they try to put on us as Black people in social media, on the media and everything. So I'm always constantly making sure living what I'm living for my sons, but also affirming them and giving them words of I am, affirmations and everything, and role modeling what's out there for them as well, and giving them those opportunities. So so that's the two ways that I look at what I do at home, and how what I do at home supports in the community as well. So being ethical at home, then going into the community. I think schools also need to engage parents. And what I mean about that is that it's not always that parents' evenings need to be at the ending of a weekday. You have to know your parents. You have to know, why not open up parents' evening on or engage parents on the weekend, based on, because most parents are still working at 6 o'clock, everything. So just because the parent is not able to come to the parents' evening on that night doesn't mean they're not an engaging parent. Life gets in the way. And that's one of the reasons why I you know, when I spoke to my head teacher, I said to her, no, we have to do more of the school to engage the parents, because we don't know what's going on for that parent. We have to remove obstacles for those parents. So I think it's a two-way thing.
Yes, as much as I agree with that, as a teacher and as a parent, sometimes you make numerous engagements or time to see parents and they're not turning up. You're actually making endless phone calls and they're not answering the phone call, they're not returning the calls. It's an ongoing process, because you see the same set of children, parents in parents' evening all the time. The ones you want to see, you don't see them. It doesn't matter sometimes how much you try to engage with them. I hear what you're saying, but
that's why I said two-way.
Yeah, but the two-way for me as an educator, sometimes I've got an open door policy and I don't get the parents.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to express that I mean, I'm one of the directors of Manhood Academy, but my day job, I work in a social, emotional, and mental health therapeutic high school for trauma kids, just to put simply. And one of the things I do as a skills coach there is liaise with the parents Just like in Manhood Academy, we have the Parenthood Academy. So we don't only nurture our boys into their greatness, but we support parents. We have specialists come in. We have Cheryl Phoenix, Black Child Agenda. We've had Layla Africa come through, Queen Afua, Black British Parent, and hopefully in the future, Debby and Courtney and Sherine. But what we do with the parents, for example, one of the questions is how can we support our children through the educational system? So we coach the parents, either ourselves or with specialists in how to navigate the educational system. For example, as we were saying, show up at parents' evening. Show up as best you can. It's the best effort, because we know there is a unspoken language, and there is a more level of respect for a parent who is engaging with the school. So show up, and show up if you can. Unfortunately, there are chronic proportions of single parented in our community, but we do encourage, if it's moms, bring your uncle, bring your brother, bring your partner if that ain't around, bring someone, so you'll come in as a team. We also advocate, emotional intelligence when you're dealing with school institutions in terms of your own temperament, with the parents showing up at school, whether it's in conflict or in a parents' evening, just managing yourself and, just leaving a good impression, because your child is going to be left in that environment after you've met with the teachers. So these are just some of the small things that we encourage in the Parenthood Academy in terms of, how to navigate the system, so, your child can be cared for when you hand them over to the school.
Yeah, and that's a very comprehensive approach by the sounds of it, looking at working with the children and the parents, which is exactly what is needed.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do in 100 Black Men of London as well, because I am, one of the mentors and mentor lead. And we do have, as much as we're nurturing the young boys and girls, we also have a parents in partnership group, whereby we are constantly encouraging the parents to go to the school, be conscious of what's going on. If there is a problem, come back to us so we could support you in the school. So that's something we also do as well, because we feel that it is so important that the parents become proactive in the education system, because after all, they have our children longer than we do.
Absolutely.
I just want to add there, and don't get me wrong, I agree with everything that everybody's saying here, that parents need to be involved. However, I'm also coming from a place of, knowing parents that have been traumatized by school. Yeah. So we cannot forget about those parents who have had trauma from the school, and they can't find themselves going to school. So I'm just being holistic in terms of looking at the big. I'm totally in agreement with parents, but there's a number of reasons why some parents don't go to school. If they were traumatized in school themselves as a child, they don't see the value of school. And that's my point. I'm just getting at that there's different types of parents out there. Yeah. And I don't think we can lose sight of that. So that's my point.
Yeah. Brilliant points. Yeah.
I would just step in with one more one more comment. Now we have an option, there are positives and negatives occurring from the situation with this pandemic. But me personally, my 11-year-old and a whole brigade of people I know, when this pandemic started, they took their children out of school completely. My son will not be going to school until he begins university. And there are very solid support systems, especially in the Black community, for homeschooling, parents pooling together, educators coming in and speaking and teaching the curriculum, etc. So, it goes back to adaptation. We are actually in a space of tragedy and also opportunity. And I'm seeing a lot of parents that I work with are choosing to educate their children on their terms, in their homes.
Fantastic.
Can I just add something to that? I just wanted to say that firstly, Courtney, I can definitely personally say that I do relate to parents being traumatized by their experience of engaging with the school or having a child in the school. When my son was in nursery, He was bullied, and I just felt very uncomfortable because he was blamed for a lot of things that even when other children were, were doing, he was the one that was blamed. And it did affect my experience of taking him to school. And I kind of avoided a lot of things, but I learned along the way that actually I needed to start engaging with the school. But it was a journey. It wasn't easy, and it was a journey. But now my son is in senior school, and I am very transparent with the school, and I tell them a lot of things that are going on. And I think maybe that in the Black community, Afro-Caribbean community, we do hold things in the home. We don't really like to share too much. So I don't know whether that stops maybe some people from engaging a lot with the school, but and I also sometimes try to educate the school on the perspective of where we're coming from as an African Caribbean family, and so yeah, I work with the school, and I just found that has helped to support my son massively. I don't think he could have got through the last couple of years without that.
Thank you, Sherine. I think just to very quickly touch on another question, a follow-on question from the first one, is to give a sense, because we are trying to focus on the home, and the home is not exclusively about the parent-child relationship. It's also about the parents or the single parent in the home as well. And maybe just understanding what some of the indicators might be, so if we're looking at the sort of family dynamic, and we're looking at, the work of Manhood Academy, the work of 100 Black Men of London, the work of Father to Father, and Sherine, the work of the Black Family Support Group, what are some of the, anecdotally, what are some of the things that you've come across that would be indicators, that these homes are possibly on the borderline of some really, really sort of troubling issues? And I suppose the reason for asking that question is so that people can actually think, okay, and evaluate, where am I, and what do I need to be looking for in terms of my relationship with my partner, in terms of my interactions with my children, and so on. So, Courtney, please do proceed.
Okay, so yeah, that's a very good question. This is one of the reasons why I set up Father to Father, just from the point of view of working in a secondary school 7 years ago. This was, and I had a lot of young people, secondary, boys and girls coming into my office, emotionally upset, boys and girls crying, breaking down, all of it. And when I would question why, what's going on, majority of the time was the common denominator, majority of the time was dad, father. And when I say that, I'm talking about, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is only in the African Caribbean community, but obviously we're talking about it here, yeah? So it was dad. So, and it was all kind of things like, they want to see dad, but they want to see dad, but mum stopped them from seeing dad. And there was no child protection issues or anything like that. Dad has a new family, and they don't really get on with the mother of the new the wife or the girlfriend of the new family. Dad's working too much, so dad's providing, but dad's working too much, and so that speaks to being absent but still in home. Being absent but still in home, and that actually triggered me, if I'll be honest with you, because then it brought me to my own journey with my own father and what I witnessed myself with my dad: domestic abuse, mental health, drugs and alcohol, all kind of violence. So it triggered me, but it also triggered me in terms of, so that was my relationship with my dad, which was all I can remember, which was negative, but I still wanted his love and validation, even though my mum is my mum's my backbone, but she couldn't teach me how to be a man. So I yearned for my father. So it triggered me. But it triggered me so much that then I started looking at my own journey with my two older boys. So I've got 4 boys. One's 30, one's 26, 16, and 11. So at that time when I was going through this, it was with my two boys, my older boys, who was 22 and 18. And I realized that actually what the young people at school was talking to me about is the same thing I'd pretty much done with them. And what that was the raving, being out there, not going football with them, and so forth like that. And I got to a point of like, you know, I'm known in the school as a restorative practitioner, which means repairing the harm. So I was like, wait a minute, I'm in school repairing the harm between teachers and students, but I caused the biggest harm in the community, the biggest harm to my own sons and their mums. So at that time, I made a conscious decision to call the mums and apologize for not being a man to help raise my boys, but then said, bring my boys. And at 22 and 18, they came, sat down with me one week and the next one next week, and they cussed me out. They had all right to cuss me out because that was their anger. And, you know, 10 months later, those boys came to live with me. And then obviously I started building a relationship with them. So this is what I've seen. Not only was it my lived experience, but it's also what I heard in school from the young people. So that's some of the things I was from my point of view. And when I say, so that impacted those girls and boys' education, because then they started displaying behaviors that came from a deep place of hurt. And that's why I always say to people, emotions drive behavior. And for me, that's why I see a lot of boys getting into gangs, looking for that family type thing, and some girls looking for that love, you know. So yeah, I can tell you a lot of stories that these girls and boys told me, which is very painful. But yeah, that's what it was for me.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Courtney. Does anyone else have any other experiences as well that they could share, or anything that they would be able to bring to bear as far as when we're looking at our homes, you know, and we're actually appraising our relationships with our loved ones? You know, what kind of things do we need to be conscious of or mindful of to ensure that we don't end up just sort of sleepwalking into these situations where our children, you know, are at risk of the system, society, education, whatever it may be, gang culture. Debby?
Yeah, we do need to be listening to our children. No matter what, we need to take off the thing of the Black community that we know more than them. It is vital that we listen to them. It doesn't matter if we disagree with them, but we need to listen to where they're coming from, because they're leaving the culture and the environment right now. So we need to be listening to them. And only from that place can we offer support, and we would be able to understand where they're coming from and enable them to navigate the experience they're going through. Communication is vital. We've got something in the 100 called Audience with Our Children, whereby, you know, I think it's coming up in the next few months, where we allow the children to have a dialogue with the parents. And it is so sad when they begin to speak about the absent fathers. In some cases, rare cases, also the absent mothers, because we give them that platform to talk to us, to talk to the parents as to how they see themselves and where they're going. That is a time where the children are talking about their experiences to the parents. That's why it's called Audience with Our Children. So we are in the audience and the children are talking to us. And it does make a lot of parents would come and talk to you about it after, how much they really didn't know that the child was going through all of that. Why? Because they didn't take the time off to listen to their children. Because I was brought up in the Caribbean. One of my pluses, I was fortunate to have, you know, parents who would listen to when I talk, but I also know cousins, etc., who were not given that opportunity to speak because they were just seen as you're the child. We need to move away from they are the children, because we are their teacher and they are our teachers too.
Yeah. Well, just to add to that, I mean, as I said, I'm very much an Afrofuturist in terms of the old school concepts. As much as tradition is so highly valued in our community, such phrases as, you know, speak when you're spoken to, children should not be seen and not heard, you know, those kind of old school African Caribbean sayings, those rules do not apply to the millennials and Generation Z. Your average child will say, speak when I spoke, but I got something to say. Why speak when I got something to say? You know, what's essential is relatability and connectedness with our young people. All right, even if we don't understand them, also just create a broader generational gap, you know. So even I don't like trap and drill, and I don't like the energy, the music, the lyrics, but sometimes we have to be non-judgmental and submerge ourselves into our young people's world without, you know, any kind of criticism or opinion, but just really just connecting and understanding. You know, that will come later when you impart those little gems of wisdom, when you've created a rapport. But we cannot just reject our young people because we don't understand them. We have to try and understand them. And, you know, in building a relationship where there is trust, a lot of our young people, especially the road youth, don't trust adults. They're trained to do that by their peers. So, you know, we have to penetrate those kind of systems that are not working for them, even though they're not self-aware of it. You know, so my thing with the young people and even my own children is connectedness, knowing where they're at emotionally and mentally at all times, checking on them after school or when I communicate with them as to how they're doing, how they're feeling, what's happened, what's good's happened, what not good's happened, all the time, constant. That is something we can empower ourselves as parents and our community to do before we hand our children over to an educational system that are not always on their side. So these things are essential. In for example, I'll give you one more example. In Manhood Academy, we have one of the key things we do in our curriculum for all our boys and girls is a letter to my father. It's compulsory. Whether your father's in your life and you have a healthy relationship, whether you've never met your father before, whether your father's deceased, you write a letter to your father, because we have to do the healing with our children as early as possible so that it doesn't develop into trauma way down the line when they hit their young adult years.
Thank you for that. And just to say that I think all of those points are very, very powerful and very important, actually, because it does exactly what we need in terms of giving us a bit of a focus and a steer in terms of what we need to be thinking about within our homes. What I will say is that from what you said, actually, in terms of understanding, you know, this generation of young people is, you know, would you therefore, and I shouldn't really be going into this, but would you say that the bar in terms of where we actually set the bar and how we actually understand the definition of respect now has also with that then changed? Well,
from I can only speak from my personal experience, and that is respect has changed. You know, I mean, a lot of the young people, especially the teenagers that I work with, respect comes from showing them respect also, which is a humbling thing for us traditional African and Caribbean, you know, elders. But it's the lesson I had to learn the hard way. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm showing you respect. And it's just, you know, it's a back and forth. We both got to work this out. So, you know, the values and rules have shifted slightly. If you do not adapt to the mindset of our young people, we'll continue to lose them.
Can I come in there?
Please.
Sister Debbie mentioned something, so I want to just touch on that when she mentioned the word place, and I actually used that I used that word a couple of months ago training teachers around having relationships with parents. But what I've realized, it can also be relationship amongst, it's any relationship, and how I terminology that is know your place, which is quite aggressive, but I did that deliberately with the teachers, because then it will stick in their head. And place is actually have patience with one and each other, especially in a time like this. So have patience with your children.
Yes.
Yeah. The L, listen. You know, I remember when I used to, when I was talking to my mum, and my mum had to answer straight away before I even finished talking. So listening is about actually removing anything behind any response, not any react. So you're actively listening to me. Because when you're actively listening to me, it brings you on to the A. You acknowledge my feelings and emotions. Because my feelings and emotions are real. For young people, they're real in that time. You then communicate. And when I say communicate, because some young people have SEN. So when you communicate, you have to be aware of your body language, your tone, because they read off of that. And E is empathy. And that's what I talk about the teachers. When you're working with parents, you have to know your place. And it's the same thing I do with my sons at home, you know? So that brings me on to, you know, you're talking about the respect. My sons are very clear, and the students are very clear that, you know what? I'm going to remove that title. Yeah, the title, the label of father and adult. We're going to have a discussion, a two-way discussion. When now I see you're not able to manage that discussion, then obviously I'm going to come back in as the adult, as the teacher, as the father. But we're going to have this, we're going to have that talk. Yeah, we're going to have that talk. And I found with that, my sons have more respect, have a lot of respect for me. And I call it, it's called discipline with love. So that's what I've learned. And speaking to our young people at school, they love that because they see Mr. Brown's coming on a level of respect. Because already I know they've got this thing in the back of their head. You're a teacher, you're going to come in as a teacher. But I have to break down that. No, I want to speak to you as a human being first.
Yeah.
Powerful. Thank
So
you. That's fantastic. I think that's a very, very powerful takeaway in terms of knowing your place, the acronym there. I want to now move on to our next question, but before I do, I just want us to refer to some of the comments that have come through in the chat. And in doing so, I'm going to hand over to Alita to read just a couple of them out.
Good evening, everybody. We have some really good comments, actually. We've got Sean Pascal, who's mentioned that he's a parent governor. And in being a parent governor, he's learned a lot and has greater appreciation for what teachers do and have built a great relationship with them. We have another comment from Mr. Junior Brown, who says, also worth sitting on the school admissions appeals hearings panel. And the metrics tell us that our boys and girls find themselves excluded and sent to pupil referral units just before their GCSE year. We need to challenge this practice that few want to shine and light on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sunday Thomas has said a lot of the negative experience with parents sometimes boil down to lost interpretation of language. And I'll read one more from Claire Williams that says that takes an enormous amount of strength to recognize that in yourself. Apologizing for not being present and allowing your children to express their hurt is fundamental. And that's a thank you to Courtney.
Thank you, Alita. And thank you to everyone for their comments so far. There's a lot that came through those comments, actually. I think what I will pick up on is what Junior Brown referred to in terms of the pupil referral units just before GCSEs. You know, that is something that requires a whole conversation in itself. And I think that is something that we definitely need to be mindful of and just very conscious about, and making sure that we as parents are able to mitigate against that as best as we can. And that only happens by us putting in place a lot of what has been discussed already. So moving on now to section 2, which is subtitled Sankofa, today's location for the lessons of heritage. So the first question on that is, what practices from the past hold valuable lessons for today's Black family? And just because Sister Debbie, you actually alluded to this in your response earlier. I'd like to start with you on this.
One of the things is the article I wrote for you guys is looking at it as the family being the bedrock of society. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so very important. We need to constantly be reminded of that, and that we need to take forward with our children, because the children need to realize that where the family is, because I feel that as a result of not knowing where the family is, they've actually lost themselves. So therefore that comes with lack of respect for themselves, lack of, acknowledgement of themselves, and lack of love for themselves. So we need to come back to the family at all times, because I feel that is so important. However, I also feel that the family sometimes need to be strong. I wouldn't say without the parents, but being aware that when the mother leaves us, the family still remain. Because time and time again, you have family that when the mother or the father leaves this world, the family become disintegrated. So that's a big thing for me right now, because I'm seeing it in a lot of families. When the parents are no longer there in this world, that the family disappears. So we need to instill the value of the family to our children, so that they know that the family is the bedrock of society, no matter what. Mm-hmm. But in order to progress with that, they also have to start loving themselves and seeing the value and the worth within this family.
Yes.
Thank you, Sister Debbie. Brother Khonsu, you actually, in one of your responses in the piece that you did for this edition, you referred to the adage that we all know: it takes a village to raise a child. And that is a very ancient saying that is very much part and parcel of our African heritage. So it'd be great if you could actually respond to this question in terms of what it is from our past that we need to be bringing forward into our future and our present, in order to inform a better and healthier home environment.
Yes, well, Sankofa is my surname. So going back to fetch it, as I said before, the Black family is the highest technology, which actually is a metaphor. It can be interpreted simply, or you can say, let's go back to ancient Kemet. The monarchies and the great kingdoms consisted of families. If we go back into our African history, those great civilizations that were built on strong families, strong communities. So that's the essence of what we unfortunately are losing. What I'm getting in a modern day context is I speak with a lot of single parent households, and they are saying to me, I'm isolated. My boy's 16, he's playing up. He's I don't know where he is. I'm not speaking to my mom. My father's passed away. My cousins live in Yorkshire or abroad, fragmentation. So what we encourage at Manhood Academy, for example, is that if there is no family around, create family, create your community. There are support systems in the organization that I run in terms of people galvanizing together and creating it from scratch if you have to, creating a support systems of people around you that will guide you and your children if the family's fragmented. But as Sister Debbie just said, it's key to our community to reestablish those connections. My parents are Windrush generation. I do remember as a young boy, we would rotate around each of our families' houses, uncles and aunts. We commune, we'd have dinner together. They'd play soca and reggae and dance and play dominoes. We would be upstairs playing Lego and video games. When I tell these stories to the young people I work with, they look at me with glassed eyes like they don't have a concept of that. That's what we need to bring back.
And any ideas, Sherine, in terms of the route back to those values?
A lot of us need to repair the trauma that we've experienced in order to be able to change the way that maybe some of us have experienced the family. My parents were from the Windrush generation, and unfortunately I didn't have that experience. Yeah, I don't really know the answer, but yeah, I just think I think in therapy you get to know a lot about yourself. You can do a lot of work, and that's going to help you to be more open to receiving love, giving love to your children, and understanding how important the family unit is.
Absolutely. Thank you. Did any of the other panelists want to add anything to that? Courtney?
Yeah, what we do in our house, we have family games nights. So I invite my brothers, their wives, their girlfriends around with their cousins. We have family games nights, you know, eating meals together, family film nights with myself, my wife. We will take turns to pick a movie. You know, so those are some of the family meetings. You know, I remember when lockdown happened, the first one, me and my wife found a family meeting template, and we just went round the table, like, okay, what worked well last week? What do you want to change this week? What do you want to keep? You know, so everybody, there was a buy-in from everybody, and everybody then knew their responsibilities within the house, because obviously lockdown, we're all in the house. So we need to have a kind of a system, but flexible at the same time. So that's what I'd say. We touched on, my brother, Khonsu touched on, you know, fragmented families. So one thing that Father has done, we was trained up by an organization called Family-Based Solutions around family mediation. So actually being able, if you found two families arguing, a brother and a sister, you know, can we go in and mediate with the families and get that network back there? So we've got 8 of the volunteers trained on that, in sort of that, because I think that is the thing. And you know, what I've also seen is that there's so much competition within families. And again, going back to that thing, keep your business to yourself. You know, how my mum raised me and my brothers is that, you know, we can talk, all of us can talk to each other about things and not be judgmental. So we have that extended network. So those are some of the things, you know. Debbie talked about the trauma. I definitely believe in that, you know, adverse childhood experiences, trauma-informed practice, you know, going deep back to slavery and looking at the trauma from there that's been passed through and we've not healed. So it's all looking at those things, you know, all of those things. I think we could start educating ourselves. I mean, just by this, the Black Knowledge Society, you've created a family unit just now by hosting what you've hosted. So it's things like this, because it doesn't have to be your immediate family. Going back to, it takes a village, you know, the whole restorative work we can do. So that's my point. That's where I'm coming from.
And we're very aware that one size cannot fit all in any circumstances in life. We're all individuals. But if we were to look at an essential family survival toolkit, what resources should it consist of? And I think to some degree, Courtney, you kind of answered that in terms of things that we can actually do to make sure that our homes are healthy. So what are some of the things that we need to actually start thinking about to ensure that we are nurturing healthy homes? So Sister Debbie, are you happy to go first on this?
Yeah, one of the things for me is the power of communication and connection. Communication. And you have to have the power of connection. And another thing is encouragement and support in terms of the value of self-worth, self-love. Self-love is not selfish. but we need to encourage our children to love themselves. Only when they have love within, then they'll be able to give love freely. And that is something, especially in the Black community, we need to start learning a lot of that, because a lot of Black people have not been taught how to love themselves. Because I've been brought up in the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean, you were told that everybody else are far more important than you are. It's only when I start realizing, hold on, I need to love me first before I'm able to give out love. And that is so crucial. And I feel that's the reason why we have a lot of the issues that's taking place right now. A lot of the young people don't know how to love themselves. Because they don't love themselves, they don't know how to love anyone else. So therefore, what everyone else is getting is all the negative and the frustration, because self haven't come into the picture. And that for me is extremely important. Value of self, love yourself, and communication. So as parents and within the Black community, we need to start. It's like something we have to start, because in some Black homes, they're not there. So this is something we need to start, and we need to start fostering. It doesn't come overnight. It's like a plant. You need to start nurturing it, and then it begins to blossom.
Beautiful. And on that note, I'd actually like to ask Sherine to come in again, because Sherine, you touched on this already in terms of the trauma, which has a large part to play in terms of our ability to love ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, Sherine, it'd be great if you could come in here.
Yeah, and that's why I would encourage anyone really to go to therapy if they can. I know that, you know, there isn't a lot of free therapy available, but if you can access therapy, then it's a very good way to work through any experiences you've had, and also personal growth, and to learn the ways to have self-care and to love yourself. It also will give you a lot more self-awareness. We need to have a lot more self-awareness so we can love our children, love our family, try and be open, have those difficult conversations, learn boundaries as well, because sometimes I don't want to sort of paint the picture of, you know, you put all these things in place, you go into therapy and it's all going to be fantastic. You know, we have difficult relationships within families. Families can be very complex, and sometimes we have to use boundaries in order to keep ourselves safe, to have those difficult conversations that we need to have. So yeah, I was from my own personal experience of being in therapy, I would definitely recommend therapy. It helped me a lot and opened my eyes to a lot of things and helped me heal in a lot of ways that I wasn't aware of before I went into therapy.
Thank you, Sherine. That's wonderful, and it's something that we actually explored in our last Zoom as well, which was focused on mental health and decriminalizing it. And part of the reason why we actually phrased it decriminalization is because it was metaphorical as well as literal, to say that within our community, you know, it is still something that we are only just starting to accept as a reality, if anything. You know, that there is a mental health component to who we are, and that mental health component needs equal amount of care and attention as our physical bodies. So thank you very much for sharing that. Brother Khonsu, are you able to come in on what this survival toolkit should look like for any family of any orientation?
Yes, I would say, just really loving what Sister Debby was expressing in terms of, selfishness. I would say self-centeredness as opposed to selfish. If you're centered in yourself, like a ripple, a drop of water in a ripple, it impacts everyone. So be self-centered and be centered in yourself so that you can give to others and give to your family, your children, your community, your friends, your family, And in terms of what Sister Sherine expressed about trauma, I guess we're all traumatized in our community, whether you're from that, whether our ancestors are the kidnapped, enslaved Africans from the Caribbean, or colonized in Africa. So we can heal the generational trauma that has been put in our place, and maybe that's what creates the diamond and that's what creates the greatness that we are. Maybe that's just how it is in the scheme of things, you know. But yeah, there has to be an ongoing healing of self and of our community through therapy. I'm a high advocate for therapy, and I'm a high advocate for self-development. In Manhood Academy, it was just by divine coincidence, half of the team did some self-development called the Landmark Forum. And when we all met, some of us didn't even know each other. It was like, oh, you do Landmark Forum as well. And it's like, ah, you did Landmark Forum, okay. You know, we all worked on ourselves before we began the work on our community and our young people, you know. I also say in that toolkit is just emotional well-being and being emotionally healthy. You know, taking care of yourself. Me, I love a spa. You see what, after quarantine, you see, there's things I do to take care of myself. Just I like to just chill in the hotel. Maybe, you know, I'm writing at the moment. Opportunity, if I got opportunity to just be in a hotel room service, you know, the things that even if you can't afford such things, you know, what can be in nature, whatever we need to do to laugh with our children and just see joy in their faces. That could be done. But I took my son to play football in the park today. And we watched the sunset. It costs nothing. Emotional well-being is so important. This is all part of the toolkits we need in our community, and that will heal the generational trauma like an onion peel, just peeling off layers, you know.
Thank you for that, Brother Khonsu. Some really, really great points. And Brother Courtney, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on this.
Yeah, definitely for me, I said, so for my family, shall I say, you know, for this household we will serve the Lord. So I submit myself to a higher being, God. So when I'm talking about when I look at my template in the house, I've got it's like four archetypes first. So it's spiritually, so I'm connected spiritually to the Almighty. Then I look at my mental, my emotional, and my physical, and I try to have all of those in line. Because when I'm in line with that, I'm in my kingly role. And when I'm in my kingly role, I can serve my wife, my queen, and my four princes. So that's how I kind of come from it in regards that aspect of everything. You know, communication is key for me and my wife. When I say communication, it's communication in is like truthful communication, but truth with love. So I'm not communicating this to you because I'm trying to hurt you. I'm communicating this to you because I want us to find a solution to it. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah. So we have that open, honest communication, which then filters down into, you know, how it's funny. My 26-year-old came around today with his girlfriend, and they say they played this game with each other. They played this quiz thing, and they say to themselves, you know, out of couples, who are the couples that they aspire to? And my son said to me today, both of them said, your dad and his wife, your stepmom.
Yes.
So it starts from the role modeling from home. That's why I always say, but before it reached home, it started with me. So when we was talking about ourselves first, around self-development and healing ourselves, I totally agree with Sherine. I'm in therapy now. I'm in counseling now. I'm picking those layers that I had no control of when I was younger. But it's deep. It's in my unconscious. So I've had to unpick all of that. But by unpicking all of that, I've seen the gold in it. My brother talked about the pain. It is painful, but it's a pain to purpose. And that purpose is being able to serve my wife, my children, my grandchildren, and my community. my brothers and sisters, the young people. So that's where it is for me. But I would definitely say, without a doubt, that's why my team's called Father to Father, because I'm honoring the Father above and what he done for me. Bringing my boys back home, having me forgive my dad. My dad's from Jamaica. And I got to that point where it was, you know, how can I hold a man accountable for something he didn't even know? If I'm holding, if I can ask my sons for forgiveness and they can find it in them to go on that journey with me, why don't I forgive my dad then and also forgive myself for something I had no control over? So that's what it is for me. And that's what we do within Father to Father. You know, we get, and within Father to Father, our boy, we got boy genius, and we get our boys to, again, love themselves with the I am affirmations. I am affirmation. So that's what we do with that. And then obviously we've got our tools for teenage parents, tools for teenage years program as well, where again, it's that support network. You know, parents are talking to each other, you know, and the parents have said since they've come on that tools for teenage parents program, because they've changed inside themselves, they've seen their boys change towards them. So again, they've been unpicking some of their trauma. So I definitely believe in self-work, self-development and self-work. That's what I have to add.
Thank you. Very, very important what you've said there. And thank you as well for sharing and advocating, being a voice actually for therapy and for actually being a male voice saying that, because I think that's something that even in our last session, we recognized as being a major challenge. So it's so fantastic to be hearing you speaking so confidently and so positively about your experiences. What I will do now is just round up with a final question, and we will attempt to tackle that in the next 2 minutes before we move on to the Q&A. So why is it important to understand family as our first society, and what are the implications of failing to build strong families as a Black community? So I'm going to put that one to Khonsu first, please.
That was a loaded question. Can you rephrase that for me?
Yeah, sure. So why is it important for us to understand our families as our first society, and what are the implications of failing to build strong families?
Well, I'm going to say again, the Black family is the highest knowledge in terms of understanding. It's about really, you know, relatedness and connectability. I mean, what is the essence of all things? The highest knowledge is also love, you know? When I listen to our young people, for example, and you know, if we listen to the music our young people are making, I digress, but I'm coming back. You can hear hyper masculinity, aggression. You can hear low self-esteem. You can hear all of that. But if you listen real close, what you hear closer is pain. You know, it's an expression of pain. Our children are crying. You know, just sounds aggressive. So it comes back to the family. You know, what are making our young people into who they are becoming? You know, our parents are stressed. Parents I work with are stressed. They're running around like headless chicken. Gotta get to work. Gotta cook food. Gotta do this. Gotta do that. Weekend. I'm tired. I just want to sleep. You know, are pressed. I think the solutions to the problems that we have. Let's go into 2021 practically. The solution is community, because our families are still trying to work it out and fragmenting or non-existent. So build and create your own support systems in your own communities, as parents and as adults. Even if you don't have children, a lot of our young people express they're isolated. They have friends and whatnot, but they feel isolated, alone. So we have to reconnect with our young people and parents, families in love, you know, and just rebuild the community that way, you know. We just have to work it in a different way if it's not working the way we wish it to.
And Sister Debbie?
Yeah, in terms of the family, we need to, have the community as a strong network of the family if we don't have our immediate family. And also feel that we need to catch the young people. So yes, it takes a village to bring up a child, and that needs to be literal, not just metaphorical, literal, because this is what's happening in our community. We are losing the young people. And we also see that if the family is not there, whether or not it is organization like, Manhood Academy, Father to Father, the Black, 100 Black men, whatever. We need to actually connect so that they know that there is people looking out for them and we have the back. We know what you're talking about. Yes, you could come to us, because failure to have those community, they're ending up in prison. They're ending up in places like, the Peru. Those are the places, because the family is becoming disconnected. And when it's disconnected, it's not only for the mature people, it's also affecting the young people more than anything else. I'm seeing it in the school all the time. The lone voice speaking, to our people, speaking about our children. It is so important. It is so important.
Thank you. Sherine, would you like to take the final word on this?
Yeah, I was just thinking actually that, we don't really see enough representation of ourselves in solicitors, barristers. So when these young people are going to court, or they're being, they get into trouble, who do they have to support them? Who do they have as representation? Often we hear about jurors, there's like there's nobody on that jury, and there's nobody that they have to represent them, or that's working high enough to sort of, to support them really. And I think we need to have more people in our community doing those jobs. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I want to thank all of the panelists for their contributions to this section of the meeting. And what I want to do is to move on to the Q&A now, just in the interest of timekeeping. So we will actually be splitting it. So we're going to take questions from those who have their hands raised using the hand raising tool. And then we'll also take questions that have come directly from the chat as well. So I want to first of all invite anybody that has any questions to please raise your hand, or if you prefer to put it in the chat, please do go ahead to make use of that also. Let me first of all take the raised hand from Gloria. And Gloria, if you would unmute, that would be great. A very warm welcome again from Australia. Thank you for joining us, conscious of the time difference.
Thank you very, very much, Esther. And my connection is really bad. I'm sorry I'm not able to put my camera on this morning in Australia. But I've been just so taken by all the conversation that you've had. I'm just madly taking notes. They are all so important. But I wanted to go back to a comment that all of you actually, because everyone seemed to have said the same thing, but particularly Courtney Brown, because he works in schools, and he talked about involvement of parents. And I cannot stress how important that is, being involved. In terms of going to school, if we appear to be only presenting to schools when there's problem, then we can appear to look like the problematic race problem. So we need to make an effort to be involved, engage in the schools when there's joyful things happening, so that you are part of the celebration. You are laughing with everyone. You're not just going there when your child has got a problem. So the schools knows you. In Australia, we have something called PNC, which is Parent and Citizen Association. I'm not sure if you have it there in England. And that allows parents to be part of a community, which is part of the school, but it's all parents. And so I'm part of that, and I've been part of that since my kids started school. I mean, we know how racism affects us. How do you think that you can dress your children to school and leave them there and think that they're going to be fine if you don't follow up and be involved? You can't entrust them to the school system, because if we do that, we're actually causing them harm, things that, you know, Sherine and all of you have been, the panelists been talking about. We need to invest in the schools where we put our children. So if there is something comparable to PNC like we have in Australia, I really encourage parents to get involved with the school and really go in when there's fate is happening, when there's happiness at the school, that they can see you enjoy. It also shows the teachers that you actually are interested in your kids, not going in when they have problems. So do you have something like that in England, Parent and Citizenship Association?
Yes, we have Parents and Teachers Association here in the UK, which I'd imagine is the equivalent. But that's a very, very important point that you've made, Gloria, particularly because, like you said, it's about actually presenting ourselves not only when there's trouble afoot, but, you know, to be part of the celebration and to actually be part of the positive reflections of what is happening within the school community. So thank you for that. I don't know if any of the panelists wanted to add anything to what Gloria has contributed there.
Can I come in?
Courtney, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Gloria, thank you for that. Yes, as Esther said, we do have those parent teacher associations, all of those associations. So we do have that. I think the issue is, and I say this because of my experience. So as you know, I work in education. Me and my wife are very active in our son's education, parents' evenings, all kind of thing. So see how the school keeps records on you and your children? Keep records on the school. So emails you send, the SIMs that they use, get all and keep a file. Because that was the only, because me and my wife are very we're actively involved. We had everything in a chronological order. So when we got to the director of education, we was able to put a file down there of how we was active for parents, and it was the school that failed my son. That's how important it is for parents to be involved and understand the system. Another terminology I'm going to put out there for everybody to Google is called contextual safeguarding. And what contextual safeguarding speaks to is that, when a school has an issue, they normally look at the home as the problem area. What contextual safeguarding speaks to is that actually a child can be harmed outside anywhere, even a school. So when I started articulating myself in terms of actually the harm is taking place in school. Sherry, you talked about bullying, and that's where the harm was taking place for my son. And that's why they started, because they started to realize that actually I understand where the head teacher was coming from, understanding the system. Actually, I had everything there to prove that the harm was in school, and that's why they moved my son. Hence why that's one of the things in Far what we do. We talk about supporting our community, and obviously I had to go through the pain. Remember I said earlier, pain to purpose. So I had to go through that pain, which set off my therapy, to be honest with you. But there's greatness, that's a purpose that's come out of it. So that's what I would have to add, is that, you have to be involved in the school, as Gloria said, because our children are there. And if you're not involved, they could be doing anything.
Thank you. And again, very, very quite emotional experiences that you share there, Courtney. So thank you once again. We do have time for one final question before we close. And I'm going to ask Aletha to give us a question from the chat.
Sure. We've got a question from Vanessa Martins, and it is, what can we do to support our children through the education system? And I'll direct that question to Brother Courtney.
Vanessa, reach out. If you are going through an issue with a school, I would say reach out to organizations like Manhood Academy, you know, Sherine and Sister Debby as well. Fathers there. There's many, I think it's in the publication, many other organizations out there that can support you. There's taking positive steps and so forth. But I think the main thing as a parent is read up on all of the school policies, be involved. If you have to go to any meetings, like my brother said, take people with you, keep a file on the school, you know, attend, make sure your child, you know, attendance, all of those things have to be in check. Keep the school informed, because they will use that against you. As soon as you don't, they will use it. I've been in experience with it where they will use it against you. So basically just be actively involved in the school. And if you're not sure, contact one of the, as we talked about, it takes a community. Your community is here. Reach out to anybody here that can help you navigate the school situation. I mean, this Mr. Debby, I know you work in the school. What's your thoughts?
Exactly. The same thing is make sure that you go to parents' evening. If you miss parents' evening, make sure you call up the teacher so that you speak to the teacher, because very often that, you know, we all work, so we may not be able to make parents' evening, but you need to make sure you keep on top of it. You call the school and you keep connected with the school. It is crucial. You might also find that you have the teachers who are reaching out. You need to connect with the teachers who are reaching out. I'm one of these teachers, I'm always reaching out. If parents miss parents' evening, I'm reaching out. But some parents are not reaching back out to me, because you could only reach out so many times. So you need to be really proactive. In my son's school, they know I'm there. They don't know that I'm a teacher, but they know I'm on the case, because I need to know what you're doing with my child, because I've actually entrusted my child in your care for a time, because my child is my responsibility. But when I give you my child, I need to know you're taking care of my child, because my child is my precious possession. So we need to start seeing it like that. Reach out, reach out, reach out. That's all I cannot stress enough. Read the documents, read everything they sent you in terms of, you know, what's going on in the school, so that you're informed and you're able to ask questions. Too often when parents are coming and ask questions, they're not coming from a place of reading the documents. So therefore they're looked upon, oh, well, you know, I don't know why she did not read that, or why he did not read that. You need to read the document that you've got. Find out everything about the school. And if they're in breach, you then write to the governor, write to the school. When you're writing to the school, do not just write to the headmistress. No. You spoke to her already, or he already. Your next court is make sure you write to the school, you write to the headmistress, and CC the governors. Do not write in isolation, because which means that the governors do not know what's going on in the school regarding you. Make sure you write to the governors. Make sure you CC the governors when you're writing to the headmistress or headmaster.
And I would say definitely contact your schools to find out what have they got on their files about your children.
Yeah.
They normally use a system called Sims, so they can print it all off and send it to you, and then you can start comparing everything. No, because they will use that. I've seen them. They will use it.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Can I just jump in and say that I actually work in a college as a personal support tutor. So I do support students. I have about 250 students that I have to see every term. And I have to go through, I have to support them with all their personal issues, support them with the personal issues, financial, anything really, and sort of liaise with the parents and the teachers. So I'm sort of in the middle helping all those dots to connect together. But predominantly, I am an advocate for the student. So I just wanted to say that, you really do need to communicate with the school as parents, like Debbie said, and Courtney. It's so important, and it really helps us to be able to support the students better. And the parents that we aren't able to communicate with or don't call us back, and we are calling several times, unfortunately, those children are missing out in the support that they really need in the educational system.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I'm just very conscious of time, so I am going to round up by saying a huge thank you to you all again for your contributions and for the questions. Finally, just to note a few takeaways from this meeting, as we always do in summary. We're just encouraging everyone to think about the potential for homeschooling groups. Think about the option where we recognise that the school system isn't adequate, isn't necessarily fit for purpose for our children. Consider homeschooling groups, and perhaps even reach out to Brother Khonsu, who's actually doing it, to understand how to go about it. There are also other resources. NABS has been mentioned, the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools is also a very, very good starting point, who we've also had on the Zoom before. And then also seek to educate the schools as well in terms of our culture. Brother Sondai mentioned about there being sort of language barriers and so on and so forth. All of that is part of actually trying to educate the school around our experiences as people. In terms of the relationships with our children in the home, looking at connectedness, thinking about how we connect to our children, listen to them, immerse ourselves in their culture, and get to understand. I think Courtney's acronym of knowing our place is also a very important one to remember. And also just thinking about other aspects like family mediation in terms of how to make sure our homes are healthy and able to thrive, as we said in the title. Think about family mediation, think about doing things differently. Don't apply the same old attempts or approaches that aren't working to new problems. New problems require new approaches, as well as looking at some of the more traditional approaches that we've had. So it should be a complementary approach. And then also, that was mentioned in terms of schools and engaging with schools, be sure to keep a meticulous record as much as you can, and try and make sure that you're getting involved with the school as early as possible, and not only at the first sign of there being a problem.